So tonight, what I would like to talk to you about is a tale of diffusion, death, and digital Romans. We were chatting earlier, and I was explaining how I made the evolution from archaeology into agent-based modeling. And the materials that I was working with were Roman bricks. Woo! Excitement! If you want a good time, buy my book. It'll put you right to bed. And anyways, a Roman brick is about 2 feet square often, and 5-6 inches thick. They are extremely heavy, and you can imagine what fun that was. And it was the realization that a brick is actually a multidimensional thing. There's information in it based on the fabric of it, based on the fine spot, based on where it's made, based on the stamps. The stamps themselves have 3-4 different dimensions of information. And that brought me into network analysis. And evolving networks are phrases you never think you'd hear yourself say. Evolving networks are really exciting. But the problem is they are static to a degree. And it was a desire to reanimate these networks and play God, and maybe 5 or 6 hours too much time in front of the computer playing Civilization that made me realize that agent modeling might be a way of reanimating these networks and doing something interesting with them. So, agent-based models in ancient history. Why bother with them at all? The main reason, and actually there's a book in the UWO bookstore on this. I went down earlier this afternoon and saw it. There's only one copy there called Complexity, a rough guide or something to that degree. But the point of agent modeling is that it lets you get to grips with complexity. Okay? It lets you get to grips with complex systems. The thing about complex systems, complexity and merely complicated are not the same thing. The space shuttle is complicated, has somewhere around 1 million parts I once read, cost $1 billion, I don't know how much it costs. But a 29-cent O-ring fails and the Challenger blows up. A complicated system you can understand by taking it apart into its constituent bits and pieces. You understand the relationships between them because the relationships never change. When a complicated system breaks down, pretty much that's it. It breaks right down. Microsoft PowerPoint is another complicated system. Microsoft PowerPoint died on Saturday and wiped out the first version of this presentation. Complex, on the other hand, in a complex system, the different parts are always in flux with one another. The relationships between them are constantly changing, and that's why you can't take apart a complex system and think you've understood it. You can map out all of the genes in this one-celled creature. It's a pneumonia bacterium. It only has 8 genes. You can map those out, and you can see where they sit on the strand of DNA, and you can see how they switch on and off. But research is just finding that it's not the only part of the equation. The gene, it matters where in 3-dimensional space that gene is, so how the DNA is folded up. And if a single gene fails, that doesn't always or necessarily kill the organism, but leads or sets the stage for something new to emerge. There's no biologists in here, is there? Just checking. So to trot out a trait phrase, in a complex system, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Okay? The other thing about complex system is that there are different levels that you need to come to grips with when you're addressing a complex system, whether it's a bacterium or the Hispanic Baroque or the exciting and multifaceted world of Roman brick stamps. There are a couple of different ways of looking at levels in the world. There's the organizational chart view. It's where you have your privates, and then you have corporals, and then you have sergeants, and then maybe a couple sergeant majors, a couple of officers, maybe a general. But 10 privates doesn't equal 1 corporal. Okay? It's a difference in organization in that sense. Then there's a container view of levels, where 60 seconds equals a minute, and 60 minutes an hour, and an hour, 24 hours equals a day, and so on. You get the idea. And then there's the emergent view of levels, and it's similar to the container view. But the idea here is that the different levels are emerging from the interaction of the parts lower down. So, driving in here from the airport, traffic wasn't that heavy, but the jerk in front of us in the concrete truck stood on his brakes quite fast. We had to stand on our brakes quite fast. The person behind was texting and didn't pay attention very well and had to move like this. The interactions between all of those individual cars, if we were up in the sky with Arnie Pye looking down at the traffic on the way in from the airport, we would have seen the traffic jam emerge from those few interactions, and it would be traveling backwards down the road in relation to the direction that the cars are moving in. The traffic jam exists at a different level of complexity. It emerges from those cars. And the traffic jam continues to exist even when that concrete truck keeps on driving. But a new vehicle suddenly finds the traffic slowed down, doesn't know why, there's no reason why, but it's entered that. So that's, by clumsy analogy, a way of trying to explain this idea of the emergent view. A year is basically just a long month when you think of it. It just adds up. But a traffic jam isn't a great big car. So that's the emergent view. And then, so we've got a school of fish in here. That's what kind of level or organization. That's an emergent thing. The fish, I'm not a fisherman, I can't catch fish at all. But in a school of fish, there's not a coordinating body or a leader fish that says, okay, everybody swim this way, now swim that way. No, the fish, their eyes are on the side of their head. They can see this fish, they can see that fish. This fish gets too close, starts moving over. And from those local interactions, you start getting the swooping and the swirling of a school of fish. In the same way, there is no white square on that page. It isn't. There's just 4 Pac-Men cunningly arranged. Okay? But that square, it emerges out of that arrangement of space. So, that's complexity and the problem of levels. And when we're interested in agent-based modeling to try and understand complexity, we have to ask ourselves, okay, so what do you model then? Do you model the single fish, or do you try and model a school of fish? Well, you identify the level of complexity that you're interested in, and then you look one level down. You try and find the individual whatever whose interactions conspire together to create that next level up. And that next level up feeds back to the individual level, constraining or enabling different activities. Okay? So feedback, positive and negative feedback. It would be like a day without sunshine to talk and not mention Anthony Giddens and structuration theory, where society is created by individual interactions whose actions are actually constrained by society. So it's circular like that. You can turn your head inside out. Well, that's fortunately why we have agent-based modeling. You could do worse than starting a discussion about agent modeling with a consideration of Groundhog Day, perhaps the most brilliant film ever. Groundhog Day, as everybody knows, is the day when Phil Connors is stuck in Puxatawney, Pennsylvania, having to relive the same day over and over and over. In Groundhog Day, think of Groundhog Day as an agent-based model where the focus is on a single agent, a single actor. Phil Connors, weatherman in Puxatawney, Pennsylvania. Phil Collins is trapped in the same day over and over again, and he can only change his own behavior. Everybody else he meets are always consistent. They always react the same way, true to their character, no matter what nice thing Phil does or what crazy thing Phil does.